In March 1974, 29 years had passed since the end of World War II. Peace and prosperity had spread everywhere. But deep within the dense and terrifying jungles of Lubang Island in the Philippines, a soldier was still fighting a war. His uniform was torn in many places, yet his rifle and sword were still shining. This man was none other than an intelligence officer of the Japanese Imperial Army, still fighting World War II, 29 years after it had ended. And that, too, against American forces. Imagine, when the whole world was celebrating peace, building new cities, and forgetting old wars, this man was fighting alone in a war that had ended years ago. His name was Hiroo Onoda, for whom time had stopped in 1944. He believed the enemy was still waiting in ambush, ready to capture him the moment he left the jungle. But the question is, how can a person go this far? How can someone survive alone for 29 years without supplies, cut off from the world? For the world, World War II ended in 1945. But in reality, it didn't end until 1974, because technically, a war continues until the last soldier surrenders. Was this just a soldier's duty, or his stubbornness that made him the last prisoner of World War II? Hiroo Onoda was born in 1922 in a small village in Japan. But this was not the Japan we know today for technology and robots. This was a Japan dreaming of conquering the world. Children were raised not just to walk, but to die for their emperor. Onoda grew up in strict discipline, where surrender didn't even exist in the dictionary. From childhood, he was taught that dying was better than surrendering. He was trained to obey his commander as if it were divine command. In 1944, World War II was at its peak. Japan was losing badly against the United States and its allies. As a last strategy, the Japanese High Command decided to train guerrilla soldiers to operate behind enemy lines. Onoda was selected and sent to a special military school where he was trained in intelligence, espionage, and guerrilla warfare. He learned how to survive alone in jungles, destroy enemy supplies, and weaken entire armies. But the most important instruction came from his commander. Under no circumstances are you to surrender. You are not even allowed to take your own life. Whether it takes 3 years or 5, we will return. Until then, you must continue the fight. These words lit a fire inside him that would burn for 29 years. He was sent to Lubang Island in the Philippines. It was a dense jungle and strategically important for disrupting enemy supply lines. His mission was simple: disrupt, destroy, never stop. But in August 1945, the world saw nuclear weapons for the first time. The United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan surrendered, and the war officially ended. But Onoda never got the message. He continued hiding in the jungle with 3 companions. Allied forces dropped leaflets saying the war was over, but Onoda believed it was a trick. He had been trained to distrust enemy information. For him, the war would continue until his commander returned. Years passed. He and his group survived on bananas, coconuts, stolen rice, and sometimes hunted cattle. They attacked local villagers, believing them to be enemies. Over time, his companions left or died. One surrendered in 1949. One was killed in 1954. The last companion died in 1972. Now Onoda was completely alone. Over 29 years, they killed more than 30 local people and injured over 100. The Philippine government tried many times to convince him the war had ended. They dropped newspapers, letters from family, even played his brother's voice, but he believed everything was enemy deception. Finally, in 1974, a young Japanese traveler named Norio Suzuki decided to find him. Suzuki wasn't a soldier, just an adventurer with 3 goals. See a panda, find the Yeti, find Hiroo Onoda. In just 4 days, he found him. When they met, Onoda tried to shoot, but Suzuki called his name in Japanese and told him Japan had changed. Still, Onoda refused to believe unless his commander personally ordered him. Eventually, his former commander, Major Taniguchi, was found. He had become a bookseller. He was brought to Lubang Island and gave the final order. Japan has lost the war. Your mission is over. Lay down your weapons. Onoda, who had arrived at age 22, was now 52. He had spent his youth, friends, and life in loyalty that many saw as madness. When he returned to Japan, he was welcomed as a hero. But Japan had changed. It was now modern and westernized. He couldn't adapt and later moved to Brazil. In 1996, he returned to Lubang Island, donated money, and created scholarships for locals to make amends. He shared his story through interviews and a book. On January 16, 2014, at age 91, Hiroo Onoda died in Tokyo. Japan may have lost World War II, but Onoda was perhaps the only soldier who won his war, yet lost the battle against time.